Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's MediaWorks Finance Roundtable. For anybody that's obviously joined us for previous sessions, as you know, we run a series of masterclasses and also roundtable activities where we focus in much more detail on a very specific topic in a specific sector. Today, we're going to be talking about a very hot topic, I think it's fair to say, around trusted intelligence in finance. I think we're going to share with people our experience from the financial services sector, what we're seeing in the space, and really what are the key drivers and opportunities for organisations in this space. What we are going to do is we are differentiating this, so we're trialing this. So again, this is a really exciting opportunity. We want everybody to engage with us as much as we can. We're actually going to ask for audience participation as we go through today's session. So what we'd really like everybody to do is if you can scan on your phone, the QR code on the right is the easiest thing to do. So just log into, you click on your Pictures app or your Photos app, scan the QR code on screen. And what it'll do is it will take you to a survey. And at different points in today, we'll be asking for audience feedback on challenges, things that you're seeing, getting your views and weaving that into the conversation. So really keen to do that. As you can see on the left, there is another way to do it if you don't want to use your camera on your phone or on your mobile device, where you can literally click on www.menti.com and enter the code that you can see on screen. So 43882893. If you've joined slightly late, we will post that in the chat so everybody can see that and get access to that. So again, we're looking for that interaction. We want to know what you think as people in the finance sector to get your opinion as we go through the discussions today. Introductions, great place to start. Why are we the three people sat on a sofa talking about this? I think for reference, I'll do introductions. So my name is David Norris. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at MediaWorks. I think obviously I host the masterclasses and all the roundtable activity of what we do. But I think for me, I've got again, a lot of experience in this sector working with a range of clients, whether it be the people like Metro Bank, whether it be people like British Business Bank, etc., that I'm engaging with on a regular basis, talking about what are the key drivers in this sector. So really interested to host, but hopefully get involved in some of the discussions around today. Kevin, I'll come to you next.
Thank you, David. My background, I'm Kevin. My experience cuts across all of FS, banking, fintech, scale-ups, speciality in data, open finance, embedded payments, across many organizations over decades.
Yeah, and you've literally been doing this very recently, like as of yesterday as well, speaking to a client in the FS space.
Yeah, we were with a workshop, Discovery Exploration, with an insurance company yesterday, talking exactly around frameworks, around innovation, and AI being a massive component in that.
Fantastic, Kevin. And then Paul?
Hi, I'm Paul Mallet. So again, I guess my background, I've been doing digital marketing for a long time and a lot of financial services experience during that time. So I started off launching MBNA's credit card, was the first FS product I did, which was, if you remember, was the start of the credit card wars.
I'm old enough to remember that.
Yeah. Nationwide Building Society redesigned their whole ATM at one point, so kind of getting into how user experience can really kind of influence people. I think one of the highlights of things that I've done in the past was working with First Direct on their mobile banking app and taking that from a 3-star experience to a 5-star experience and learning the importance of user-led and user-centric design and listening to customers. And then, currently, as David said, David and I are both working on a new client of ours, British Business Bank, which is all about business finance and startups and scale-ups, where again, we're kind of on the marketing side of it, but then we're thinking a lot about AI and messaging and the role of this in kind of overcoming some of the barriers that we might go on to talk about in the session.
Yeah, and I think that teases us nicely in sort of, I think we've covered really a lot of what's on the screen in sense of why this conversation matters now. Like we do know digital transformation is accelerating across financial services. We're going to pull out a range of research that we've done, a lot of the statistics and data that we've got to talk about what is happening in that space, but also what is driving that activity and what is driving that change. We're then going to explore some of the tensions in that space. So again, sort of that balance between visibility and trust and people's understanding and taking consumers on that journey, which I think is going to be fascinating. And then we're also going to talk about innovation. And again, how do we manage change and also what must change to actually recognize the potential that I think is out there and lots of people are talking about. So I think, look, hopefully that gives you a flavour for some of the things that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk, as I say, about a range of topics and get, as I say, hopefully your interaction as we go through the session today. I will prompt you on when to do that, by the way. So again, just go with us. We are trialing this. Really looking forward to seeing how everybody engages with that process. So I think the first point, Kevin, come to you is when AI is accurate but customers still don't trust it. We're seeing a lot, aren't we, out there around trust around AI. And I think for me, sort of this statistic that's on screen right now really highlights sort of the challenge and also the opportunity that exists.
Yeah, for me, accuracy in the model is obviously critical. But if we take consumer duty, which is obviously mandated, but also an advantage for many organizations, consumer duty asks a very, very different question. And when the FCA come out with a 72% of opacity and distrust in AI, that shifts the mindset to what we should be looking at. So we have AI in fraud detection, we have it in risk underwriting, and of course that is really critical. Consumer duty asks a really different question. Is it fair? Is it transparent? And is it explainable? So for us as organizations helping with FS and across many different sectors as well, is that we need to reframe the bar in terms of, so that's the first thing that we need to do. It's not about accuracy, it's about consumer first.
Yeah.
And starting with consumer. And then the evidence from the FCA shows us that distrust is still there. So then we need to fix that. And how we fix it is by looking right at the customer journeys, explainability, transparency. We have human off-ramps. So when it gets complex and difficult, that we default to human.
Yeah.
And that's a really important point when it comes to AI. And when we do that, that means that we have a customer journey that's augmented.
Yeah.
It's not just AI first for the sake of AI.
Yeah.
It's about customer first, value, impact, and then bottom line. And I think where we are at the moment was with the AI is cheaper, faster. Whereas actually the phase of operating into yesterday is better, smarter, value, impact, ROI, bottom line, customer.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really shifting how we look at these things, David.
I think it's really interesting. I'll go on to this slide shortly, but it's like, I think we've talked, haven't we, about is AI model accuracy enough in a consumer duty world? To your point there, Kevin, I think it's fascinating when I think about this in the sense of even chatbots. You know, where we started, you know, chatbots seem very new, like 5-10 years ago. And again, we talked about having sort of human off-ramps and what that meant as part of the journey that we went through. And I think, you know, again, we've got a number of observations, haven't we, that we'd like to draw out, I think, as we go through this section.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think the 3 points at the bottom kind of say already that you can be in a world where everything is ticking boxes, statistically correct, legally compliant, yet at the same time complaints are rising. And if you look at the FCA complaints for 2025, they're on the up in spite of all our technology. So
Yeah.
there's something going on that we need to look at.
So I think that hopefully tees up nicely this section where I'd like to ask a question to the audience really around how confident are you that that customers understand your AI-driven decisions today? So what we'd like you to do is if you've scanned that code, if you've scanned the QR code, if you've entered it, what we'd like you to do is you should be able to now just input and answer that query as it comes on screen. So how confident are you that customers understand your AI decisions today? So I think what we believe organizations should do is really interesting, isn't it? So Kevin, like based on some of the results that we're seeing come through right now, we can see, can't we, that we're seeing slightly confident, explainability is limited or reactive seems to be, and it's interesting to see it moving, fantastic, in terms of the dynamic nature, seems to be the overriding sort of sentiment and feeling out there. And again, we've talked about, haven't we, therefore, what do we believe that organizations should do as part of that?
I don't think AI has changed anything that customer first, experiences lived, working back from that, and then taking that mantra that we're making money, we're making money from being fair, transparent, explainable, and that just puts like a new design principle in. So explainability is a design principle. So for me, is that how confident our customers understand is simplicity, it's clarity, it's being adaptable to different impacts of AI, so that you have journeys that people can then change that journey, or as we said before, human off ramps. And then default to service that has always been important, right?
And I think that this now goes into the next point as well.
And I think it's very interesting. Sorry, just to stay about some of the data. So again, thank you everybody for engaging with that. But I think it's fascinating to see sort of Zero very confident in this space, and that's probably again what we feel when we're speaking with clients, right?
It's the truth, right?
Yeah, it's the truth. Yeah, exactly. We're getting really interesting insights here. So again, thank you very much. And as you say, Paul, it does lead us nicely into the second point that we'd like to cover, which is sort of visibility versus comprehension. So are customers actually understanding you? So again, like there's a whole element of visibility that exists out there. And again, key statistic on the screen is 57% of customers say clear online information is the biggest factor in choosing a provider. So we know that that massively matters and is something that consumers hugely care about. But are we getting it right? Are we getting that visibility versus comprehension correct?
Yeah, and I guess to me, I think all the experience I've ever had working with, quite deep into like how an app works or how an application process works, or even the messaging that we need to be putting out through marketing, is that for the vast majority of people, financial services experiences are pretty much loaded against them. Use obscure language, acronyms, but you always kind of feel like you're the stupid one. And then you see the headlines of the financial services organisations making all the profit. And you also sat there going, why haven't I got more money? And I think, people lack confidence, people lack knowledge when it comes to money. And that you can look at from the consumer point of view, or like I say, some of the work that we've been doing, researching into people that are doing startups or scale-ups, you see exactly the same kind of lack of confidence and lack of understanding coming through in that audience. So we should never underestimate that. Yes, there's an audience out there who are super into this, and the rise of trading shows on YouTube, and people are very, very into different finance mechanisms that they can invest into. But the vast majority of people, it's it can be difficult, and it can be challenging. And I think when we look at things like, most of the time if we look at our kind of digital metrics on the left-hand side, rankings, traffic, impressions. But I think what's more critical, and we'll get more traction, and we'll start to kind of turn what I think is a very important corner, is if we look at time to understanding. Are people abandoning journeys way too early on because they can't even get past question 1 on a form? Clarification driven content, how much is that being accessed? We all like a little eye to pop up next to inner circle when we're feeling confused. But sometimes you've got to ask yourself, could we have designed the model differently and the process differently? So I think this point at the bottom, awareness is often strong but comprehension is weak, is something that I see coming through again and again. And it's a big consideration that in our AI agentic world, we still have humans at the receiving end of that, and they're not perfect.
No, they're not. And I think to your point, and it's really interesting, isn't it, that we're talking about awareness is often strong. And I think these are some of the statistics and call outs that we've seen. But again, it'd be really interesting to get the audience's view on this. So again, sort of what is your primary digital performance metric for product journeys? I'd be really interested to understand a bit more about that, given the list of organizations that we've got on today's masterclass as part of that. Because I do think that, we're talking here about what is your primary digital performance metric? Is it traffic and rankings? Is it things like conversion rate? Is it engagement rates or engagement metrics? Is it, for example, customer understanding or clarity in metrics? And you can see straight away there, conversion rate seems to be coming through very strongly. So I guess then that leads into, and again, thank you very much for your input. We've got a slightly more colourful chart this time around. But I guess for me, it's like, what do we believe organisations should do on the back of the responses that we're seeing? Seem to be backing up a lot of the data that we've seen.
I think I was just chatting to David before. There's a new thing with Google letter got published last week. I got it today. And Google are really looking at this world and saying, what do we need to do about it? And we should listen to what Google are doing, because, it's a platform that most people experience every day. And they've come up with these three words, fluid, assistive, and personal. And that, for me, sounds like three very, very good principles to be thinking about when we're looking at these kind of problems. So fluid, removing friction from a UX point of view. Assistive, always assuming that we can be more helpful. And then personal, tailoring the experience to what we know about that person already.
Yeah.
And I think that, we've got some nice bullet points on the left-hand side, but I really like those three words from Google today. But very interesting what that chart is showing us. But no surprises that conversion rate is the primary metric.
Yeah, and traffic and ranking. I think it's interesting, isn't it, when you look at the smattering of results that we're seeing there. I think it is fascinating to see that, again, there is no right or wrong here. It's just the truth. It's just people's opinions. And I think it just shows everybody's at different stages in the journey around where we're at in terms of that development and that maturity. So I think, again, absolutely fascinating. But I do think there's a whole host of things that organizations can be doing. And to your points, Paul, I think around things like, utilization of internal terminology versus customer facing activity, aligning SEO, UX and compliance into a single clarity program, all will inevitably help with this whole process, regardless of how you're measuring it. So I think that to me is really fascinating. So again, thank you very much for everybody's interaction. The third point we'd like to cover is fintech has reset trust expectations. So have traditional institutions caught up? We've seen a lot of challenges into this space, a lot of new entrants, if you like. And I think for us, again, one of the things that we've been working with the likes of Metro Bank is they've almost had a bit of a back to the future type approach, where they've gone actually really heavy on high street banking when the market was moving more away from high street banking, as an example. And we can see here that 46% of UK business leaders now trust digital only banks as much as traditional banks. It's a conversation I have with my wife on a regular basis. I'm much more traditional, she's much more digital. So even our household is relatively split down the middle.
Ask you to come to dinner.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds great. We have loads of conversations. But I guess the question that we really wanted to ask on the back of this was around, can legacy institutions compete on transparency and speed? Because a lot of the new entrants, that is their selling point. That is definitely their USP, isn't it, Kevin?
You know what? I've been asked this for decades. The death of the banks and FS and fintech will take over the world.
Yeah.
In reality, it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So yes, of course, the incumbents that I don't like to call them legacy anymore.
No.
Because they've really advanced. They've got really great people, really good capability, but might lack coordination.
Yes.
And when it comes to AI and the transparency, coordination across legal, risk, compliance, all of that stuff around trust and ethics, that's a team.
Yeah.
Whereas a fintech quite often has a greenfield.
Yeah.
They have a starting point. But guess what? The incumbents have got a massive advantage. They have massive customer base.
Yeah.
They have massive scale in the data. And when you bring that together, is that they've already got a marketplace. So for me, this is about then turning speed and trust into the regulations and the customer first piece. The existing organizations are doing that.
Yeah.
They're actually partnering with a lot of the fintechs. So yes, they can catch up. And I think that where we're at now, trust at speed with AI is a massive advantage for the incumbents.
Yeah.
But the fintechs are also partnering and bringing solutions and platforms that are different.
Yeah.
So the incumbents aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
They're already established, making money, customer focused, have talent. It's more about collaboration and partnerships,
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing is that consumer expectation and comfort also increasing. I mean, that statistic on the right-hand side, 93% of UK adults use at least one form of remote banking, to me is fascinating, because we are just seeing that mass adoption. So the market for online digital solutions is growing. And I think that's what we wanted to really drive in terms of talking about that element of trust. And again, next survey on the screen really focuses on where do you believe your organization is most exposed to trust erosion. The options are lack of transparency in fees or eligibility, slow or unclear communication during complex journeys, legacy systems limiting real-time updates. So we believe we are keeping pace with customer expectations. Again, it's great to see some of those results coming in. Early signs are slow or unclear communication during complex journeys. It's fascinating, isn't it, to see sort of the growth of that. It seems to be a really even split there actually between legacy systems, sort of limiting real-time updates, real split between those two areas. But what do we believe then, based on people's input there, that organisations should do to manage that, Kevin?
I think that the first point is that this is a horizontal look through an organization. AI cuts through functions, departments, etc. So you need a multidisciplined team with accountability, responsibility around trust. And I think what we're going to see is a lot of the trust's authenticity metrics come in, reducing complaints, but how do we reduce it? What was the thing that was made that customer move to the next step? Was it that we were clear on our policy or terms and conditions, or where AI made a difference? Because I think that for me, AI embedded starts with that trust and ethics piece.
Yeah.
Is that where we are using AI, it is explainable, but there's a human or a team that's accountable to that.
Yeah.
Who do I pick the phone up to?
Yes.
Who do I speak to when I think that's got a bit of bias in there, or I didn't get that credit decision or I was refused insurance because of what? How does that then work into that experience?
Yeah, it's how do you overcome, in simple terms, computer says no sometimes,
no.
isn't it? And I think that's a sense of really human element where we are expecting that really personalized, tailored approach now as a consumer, but also how do you balance that with computer-based or machine-based decisions?
I think how you balance that is that AI and blockchain are a marriage made. It's about for what purpose, who authored it, who built it, who tested it, when did it go into a safe environment before it went live, how we tested the customer first in terms of what would be the outcomes that were desired. So these principles have been in there forever.
Yeah.
AI is just a tool. It's applying the things that we do well, and financial services does that really well.
Yeah.
Is that the regulations are really embedded.
Yeah.
Consumer duty, FCA, all the things that are there. It's a framework around that. It's a set of models, a set of principles that we just need to adopt for the AI.
And that leads me nicely on to sort of open data and real-time decisions. So like personalization or perceived surveillance, I think is something that is a big point, and it often becomes the debate around AI often. I think some of the ethics around that. So I think like the statistic out there is like 24 billion. So UK open banking API calls in 2025 up 37% from 2024. Like it's crazy,
incredible.
it's incredible statistic, isn't it? Yeah. And I think that sort of where that moves us to is like, does richer data strengthen trust, or is risk undermining it?
So I think this is well, obviously we put it in here because we think it's a fascinating question, but when I think about this, the first thing I think about is actually just slightly outside of FS and look at utilities and the way that Octopus Energy have changed the way that people engage with the utility company. I've done a lot of work with utilities over the years. Everyone would say we're the most boring thing ever. Well, you're the most boring thing ever until you're not. So it's either energy prices, or you're concerned about climate, or you're just interested in what's going on. And Octopus have kind of redefined how you might engage with the utility company. And I think we can learn a lot from that. We can learn a lot from the loyalty applications that everyone has with regard to a retailer, or where you do supermarket shopping. All of these people are leading the way in terms of things like real-time analytics, predictive nudging, and inevitably there will be agentic marketing, and there's nothing more hyper-personalized than Lidl telling you can buy this thing that you really like. These guys have got it all licked, and that means that there's a growing kind of expectation from customers that this is how it should work in finance. again, I've done a lot of work in terms of kind of imagining the future of what banking could be like, and you kind of get to a point where there aren't any banks and there is no money, because all of those are just a means to an end.
Right.
People work and then they want to get services. The fact that I can do it with my phone now and it's not a coin. Things change, the technology changes. But I think what's interesting now, and with AI coming along, is the way that we interact and ask questions and expect things to happen. I mean, AI and large language models are one of the most complex things that has ever been invented by humankind. Yet you interact with it by asking it a question. Now, often, in my experience, when you're looking at the functionality of a banking app, you're going, I need to pay David 20 quid.
Yes.
Right, now, really, that should be the interface. That's it, done.
Yeah.
Because all of the background and the APIs are in place to do that, and then you've delivered a really frictionless experience. And so I think we can learn from that a lot. And you could argue the fact that I owe David a pint. The next time you're in a pub and you get a pint, you don't pay for it, because it just credits it from my account. Now, there's a world where all that starts to happen, because behind the scenes, we're removing friction point after friction point after friction point.
Yeah.
So I know I've kind of gone off on a bit of a dream there, but for me, this is where all this gets to. And, it probably comes down to, in the first instance, more practical things like help me save some money.
Yeah.
This has been around for a long time. If everybody saved 5p for every pound that they spent, you'd very quickly have the money to pay for a new mountain bike or whatever it is that you want to do.
The big uptake in open banking, it's not open and it's not banking, it's trust. So the words are wrong. It's actually the application of connecting a customer bank account or finance to a trusted third party.
Yeah.
And then that's got use cases across insurance, fraud, credit scoring. So the uptake is actually, it's moved to open finance, but it's actually moving to open life. Because if you see that other countries adopting the fact that I, as an individual, like to share my data with that trusted third party, and 67% of people do.
Yeah.
Yeah, there has to be the regime in place, if you like, to make sure that transfer, the process, and everything that goes with it, it is absolutely secure and trusted.
Yeah, and as Google said in that letter that I referred to earlier, they'll quote them, as we empower agents to act on behalf of consumers and businesses, our rigorous standards for data privacy and security ensure that the fast lane remains a safe lane. That is going to be critical for all of this. So we can all imagine a wonderful world where things are much simpler, but it's the trust that lies at the heart of it that's going to be critical.
So let's get the final bit of audience input on this. In if customers fully understood how you use their data as an organization, how do you think they would react? I'm really interested in this, in a sense that, sort of, do we think they'd be reassured and confident, neutral, so they think they expect it, or slightly concerned or significantly concerned? So if you're an organization, what are you seeing out there? Because I think that, again, early indicators there are reassured and confident / slightly concerned are coming up as the two most sort of considered areas. We're now seeing neutral, so they expect it. But what do we believe organizations should do, Paul?
I think, well, I mean, we've kind of listed it on the left there. I think if you're gonna, you need to offer value, you need to offer practicality, and as part of offering that, you need to make it clear the data that you require to make those services available. If I want to pay back David for the pint that I owe him, and you're going to facilitate that, but you need a bit more data from me, just let me know. So it's making things transparent, human understandable, in the way that ChatGPT has arguably done that and simplified a very complex process. Always demonstrating how that data is improving the experience. And I think this visible governance principles around AI and data use, back to the point that I just made about Google, it's fine for Google to say that. How are they going to evidence that? So I think we're going to see new things coming. Google has just announced something that they're calling their universal commerce protocol, which could be a set of standards and maybe auditing. That means that you're fitting a certain standard. I think that this is going to come along, and then this last point is a bit more to Kevin's point about being horizontal, cross-functional AI governance that actually goes across the piece here, and I think that's a very pragmatic way forward. But I do think we're looking for some standards. Would you think, or do you think it's going to be very liberal?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that, but
Yeah.
what I do know is people will share the data if they
Yeah.
trust the organization
Yeah.
and they get value from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's moving into conversational marketing, which
Yeah.
we're facing into
Yeah.
as our own organization.
Yeah.
Is what role does the brand have here around having that trust
Yeah.
and sharing data,
Yeah.
intentions, behaviors, predictions, interventions at the right moment, at the right time.
Yeah.
People love that.
Yeah.
They love those prompts to say, I've just found this for you. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
you might like it.
Yeah.
So the richer the data, the better. But that comes with limitations. Now we don't need to have first party data.
Yeah.
We need to have interactions that we can interpret and then predict and even prescript. We know you're going to be in this moment.
Yeah, and then to bring the audience in on that, I think it's them. What we're saying here is that 50% are saying like neutral, they expect it, and I think there is, isn't there? There is that sentiment out there, but I think it's about how do organisations align with that and make sure that we're delivering
That's
the
the key.
best experience. I think one of the things that thank you very much for everybody's interactions as we've gone through the session today. I think what we'd just like to offer up, as at the end of all masterclasses or roundtables, is we want to give something back, so something tangible that anybody joining the session can listen in on. What we'd like to do is we'd like to offer a free MX digital audit, which will look at addressing pain points and driving performance through digital channels. So a very tailored, very targeted bit of insight that you can tangibly take away and look at how your organization is comparing across a number of metrics across the financial services industry. We collect this information, data in the background, and collate this into one space across these 5 key areas. So across brand, across reach, across authority, technical engagement. And we've produced a range of league tables and insights that can be taken away to really understand sort of where your organization is lagging behind the competitions and your named competition. So please do sign up in the chat, use the link there where you'll be able to highlight who you see as your competition. And then what we're able to do is we're able to benchmark you, as we've said, across the sector median that we're seeing out there, but also across 21 key data points that we're using to analyse organisations. I think it's a really fantastic opportunity for organisations to just get a real understanding around a lot of what we've talked about today around
I heard yesterday from the discovery session that it's where to place your investment.
Yeah.
And it's different to all the other league tables, things that's out there. And I think that's useful to any organisation.
Yeah.
Where do we place our bets?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the purpose of the MMX in terms of helping organisations, I think that's really smart.
Yeah. And I think, like, look, again, I say, please do sign up. It's something we'll be encouraging people to engage with. And I think, again, one of the things that we're often asked is, where do I benchmark against my competition? So it allows us to do all of those really insightful pieces where we'll give you something very tailored. So again, please do sign up. Hopefully you take us up on that and we can share it with you and talk you through it. I think the key takeaways out of today's session for me would be the future is definitely trusted action. So AI must be explainable, not just accurate. We must educate people in that space. Clarity and transparency now define trust. So how clear and transparent are we ultimately relates directly to trust. The strategic shift is already taking place. I think we're not at an end point. We're not at a beginning. We're partway through a journey. So we are from automation to responsible intelligence. And then we talked about all those nudge principles and targeting tailored activity, from reach and compliance to understanding and experience. So driving that really through all of our experience, not just how's it performing in search, but how's it embedded in all of our activities. And then I guess what leaders should do next. It was great to get those inputs from everybody as we've gone through the session. It feels like people are partway through the journey in lots of those instances and partway through and have an understanding of these principles. But I think what we'd be saying is design for clarity at every decision point, and also measure trust as rigorously as performance, because trust is going to matter in this space, like especially consumer index and around things like trust and responsibility and engagement is going to matter so much. So I think it's so important. And then I guess the final thought really is around digital transformation in financial services will not be judged by how advanced systems become, but by how confident customers feel when using them. And I think that for me is going to be where we are heading. And I think there's some brilliant examples of organizations who are along that journey, further along that journey. But I think for me, it's about understanding where you're at and having a plan for moving forward. So hopefully today's been part of that journey and has been food for thought. But thank you very much for everybody for your engagement throughout. And as I say, we look forward to seeing you on a MediaWorks masterclass or roundtable in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Paul. And thank you for joining.
Bye.
Bye.